Hello there! In the last videos we presented realism, neorealism, liberalism and neoliberalism. In this video we look at how another major strand of theorizing, constructivism, explains international politics and the driving forces of actor behavior. In essence, constructivism in international relations theory is based on many different approaches, but broadly it can be seen as a reaction to neorealism, but also neoliberalism. It criticizes some of the core assumptions of these strands of theorizing and aims to offer alternative explanations. Constructivism, like other major theories of international relations, has many different authors and sub-schools. But what is common to most of these approaches is that social reality is not assumed to just be given, but it is constructed. Knowledge does not exist independently of interpretation and the use of language. We give what we see a meaning. So how we and others see the world depends on how the social reality is constructed. It is not so much material interests and power that matter, but for example, ideas, norms, identities, and processes of learning. It is not so much the structure of the international system that determines how states act, but how states view each other. An enemy of a state is not an enemy because it holds a specific amount of power, but because it is perceived as an enemy. Another state with a similar level of economic or military power is perceived as a friend, and with this not seen as a security threat. The level of threat that another state poses to the own state is not something that can just be measured by its military weight or its economic power. For constructivists, institutions may not only offer formal rules of interaction, but they also shape actor behavior. Actors will learn within the setting of formal or informal institutions and get socialized by them. The gradual acquisition and development of shared norms and values will matter. For example, the value of human rights or democracy may be learned and by mutual interaction gradually be seen as valuable. Constructivism does not see actors as utility maximizing or rational. Ideational factors are generally understood as being more important than material interests. It is the spread of norms and values, changing identities, and patterns of socialization that will mainly affect actor behavior, including interactions between states. Images and perceptions will matter, such as whether actors perceive others as belonging to self or to the other. In 1992, Alexander Wendt wrote a very influential article in which he presented some of the most important elements of what now is called social constructivism. His article was titled, "Anarchy is what states make of it, the social construction of power politics." In essence, he criticized some of the core assumptions of neorealism, but also of neoliberalism. A main message of his article is that states do not so much act on the basis of the constraints and opportunities that the global system offers, but the ways in which they perceive each other and their actions. Social reality, in this sense, is constructed, and with this also the patterns of interaction between states in international relations. For constructivism, cooperation between states may be possible, but the focus of analysis is different compared to other theories of international relations. For example, when analyzing an entity such as the European Union, a constructivist is more interested in aspects such as how this regional organization is affected by and supports values and norms such as democracy, the rule of law, and human rights, than how material features shape the behavior of this organization. Similarly, identities will matter, like the question to which extent citizens of the European Union, for example, will feel they are French, German, Polish, rather than citizens of the European Union. the European Union in turn will affect these identities. Constructivism differs from other major strands of international relations theorizing by its emphasis on how states perceive each other, by the importance of identities and of images, such as self and the other, by whether states see each other as friends or as enemies, and finally by a focus on socialization and learning. In constructivism, institutions matter, but as formal or informal rules that affect actor behavior. For most constructivists, it is not so much material forces that are assumed to influence the behavior of actors, but rather ideational ones. The end of the Cold War, for example, triggered many debates about the relevance of constructivism as a theory to explain international relations. Constructivists argued that the failure to predict the end of the Cold War showed that the focus of neorealism on security and anarchy was largely wrong. As explained, for example, by Robert Snyder, constructivists claimed it should rather be the terms of agency and of ideas and the so-called new thinking of Mikhail Gorbachev. The Cold War ended not because of strategic or military reasons, but because of a change in identity and a change in thinking in the Soviet Union itself. However, as also explained by Snyder, this in turn fails to recognize that Gorbachev was not only driven by ideas, but that his foreign policy was also an instrument for domestic purposes. For more on this article, please refer to the reading list. This example shows that there are many different explanations of a major event, such as the Cold War and its ending. Scholars do not agree on the causes and dynamics of what could be called one of the most defining periods in the history of the 20th century. What do you think of these different explanations? Do you think that one strand of theorizing can more adequately explain international relations than the others? So, what have we learned? In essence, constructivism is now one of the major strands of theorizing in international relations. It does not consist of one single school of thought, but most constructivists in international relations believe that social reality is constructed by mutual interaction, that material interests are not as important as non-material ones, including norms, ideas, and identities. In the next video, we will explore quite a different topic by looking at one of the most important institutions in global affairs, the United Nations Security Council.